Now, guys, we got to check in with more influencers and misinformation spreading like wildfire after Trump's incursion in Venezuela to take custody of, abduct, depending what language you want to use, the dictator of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro. And we got to check in with Candace Owens, the right-wing YouTube star and self-described conspiracy theorist who has become an outspoken voice for kind of the anti-interventionist right. And I certainly think, like I've said, that there are many legitimate critiques and complaints to be had about what the Trump administration is doing in Venezuela. But then there's also some not so legitimate or coherent critiques. And there's a whole lot of fake news and misinformation being spread on both sides of this debate right now. We're going to go over all of that, starting with Candace Owens, who, to me, I'm not somebody who thinks Israel is beyond reproach or we can't have those conversations or debate, but there is something of a derangement in the other direction where people suddenly start to think literally everything is about Israel, when it is not, in fact, all about Israel. And President Trump's decision to intervene in Venezuela is about a lot of things. I think it's about obviously wanting to liberate the people of Venezuela because there is a massive expatriate community in America and in the Trump administration of Latino Republicans who've wanted this for years. It's also about oil. That's undeniable, about wanting to secure Venezuela's oil resources for American companies. Trump has openly admitted it. And then I think it's also a bit of a personal vendetta. Maduro openly mocked Trump, which is pretty, if you ask me, a stupid thing to do. He'll be regretting that now. There's so many reasons for this. But one thing that's not really at play is Israel. Trump is not doing this because Israel wants him to. That's not it at all, yet that's what Candace Owens immediately went with. Let's look at the tweet she posted that quickly went viral. Venezuela has been quote-unquote liberated, like Syria, Afghanistan, and Iraq were quote-unquote liberated. The CIA has staged another hostile takeover of a country at the behest of a globalist psychopath. Yeah, so that's written incorrectly. I'm not misreading it. That's how it's written. That's it. That's what's happening. That's what is happening always, everywhere. Zionists cheer every regime change. There has never been a single regime change that Zionists have not applauded because it means they get to steal land, oil, and other resources. Hope this helps. Narrator, it did not in fact help because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Immediately seeing what's going on in Venezuela and yelling Zionists and talking about Israel doesn't make sense because it doesn't really have that much to do with that. Obviously, there is a dimension to this where Nicolas Maduro and the Venezuelan government were outspokenly anti-Israel, but like, so what? that doesn't really... Venezuela is such a tiny player, and especially after all the crisis and catastrophe that it's suffered, economically speaking, and the political isolation, it's not a influential player on the world stage that's meaningfully constrained Israel in any way. So like, it's not a big deal in terms of Israel's top objective is to get Maduro out of power because he's just creating so many problems from them. Like no, they can't even feed their people. They're not wielding massive amounts of global influence. And regardless, that's just not what's at play here. And for her to say, like, oh, liberate, in quotes, do you not agree that the people of Venezuela were being brutally oppressed by Maduro? I think you should at least acknowledge that. You can disagree with the intervention, but when you act like, oh, it's just a sham that we're liberating anyone, I think a lot of Venezuelan people would object to that and disagree with that because they've wanted. I've even seen very liberal Venezuelans who hate Donald Trump for all the other reasons being like, guys, we got to give him this one, or at least, even if they don't agree with the way it's being done, which I don't necessarily, but they acknowledge that the people were being oppressed. And when you can acknowledge these truths, when you can hold these nuances at the same time, it makes any criticisms you have seem much more nuanced and reasonable than when you just are rambling about Zionists over and over again. They just want to steal oil and all this. Obviously, that's part of it, but also it's not like, that's not a Zionist thing. That's a corporate thing. It's a profit-seeking thing. It's an American thing where Trump wants to get rich, but not because he's Zionist. Like, you think the American oil companies want to get into Venezuela and get their resources because of Israel. It's like not everything is about Israel. And this can go in either direction. You have people on one side or the other extreme of that debate where it becomes an all-encompassing worldview when it's not, in fact, the root of everything happening in society and in the world at all times. Sorry, not sorry, Candace, but it's just not. And when you insist otherwise, it makes you seem a little crazy, especially because there's no, like, that was her first statement about this. Her first public commentary about this was to immediately connect it to Israel when it's really not about that. I don't know. It's not helping you beat the like obsession allegations, which aren't even allegations at this point. They're just facts. Other than that, though, Candace is doing great. She also attached this clip of, she shared this clip of Tucker Carlson, which is such a weird clip, man. I'll just roll it. We'll listen to it. And we've discussed this in the past, but it's useful context here. Let's listen.
Ben Shapiro was just sitting there being interviewed by Megyn Kelly and said something. He said something like, well, Tucker Carlson's, for Maduro, the communist leader of Venezuela, who I guess were on the way to killing or something, forcing out, regime changing him. And he defended Maduro. Didn't, actually. And Megyn Kelly says, well, Tucker said in his show that Maduro, most people didn't know this, whatever his many faults, I wouldn't hire him as an economist, okay? But whatever his many faults, has the most socially conservative country probably in the hemisphere. So
that's like I'll let him finish, but that's like just such a diabolical understatement. Oh, the socialist dictator who caused hyperinflation and left people eating rats and forced millions to flee. Well, maybe I wouldn't hire him as an economist. What?
the hemisphere. So Venezuela is just a fact. I mean, I didn't make this up. I'm not in charge of Venezuela. Just noticing that Venezuela has banned pornography, banned abortion, banned gay marriage, banned sex changes, and banned usury. You don't have credit cards with 40% interest in Venezuela.
This is so random. First, not all of this is true. Pornography is heavily restricted, but still basically widespread available in Venezuela. And then okay, congrats. You really hate gay people getting married that much that you're like, whoa, that's socialist hellscape. At least they don't let gay people happily wed their partners. What can I say? That's really, I'm just asking questions. That crazy chuckle that he does. That's not it. I can't really do good impersonations, but you guys get what I'm saying. And then this whole thing about credit cards. So they have interest rate caps on credit cards. Bitch, people are eating rats. They're fleeing the country as refugees. And you're like, well, the credit card companies there can't charge 40% interest rates, so I'm just asking questions. Is that really the worst regime? I don't know. The priorities are so out of whack here, to say nothing of the fact that, per usual, he's not accurately, factually describing the reality on the ground in Venezuela. So, but then he's going to detail his beef here more with Ben Shapiro and other people. But Candace shared this clip because evidently she also, I don't know, maybe she agrees with Tucker's suggestion that it's all part of globo homo. As if the Trump administration, think about this, the ones doing this regime change, whether you like it or not, whether you support it or don't, is the Trump administration. And Tucker's argument is that part of the reason they're doing it, he literally used the term globo homo, is to install a pro-gay marriage regime and apparently install, are we supposed to believe they want more abortion in Venezuela? The Trump administration? It doesn't actually make sense, but I don't think the point is to make sense. I think the point is to be edgy and contrarian. And I guess at that they've succeeded. I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know. They also just again, with the misinformation, they spread some significant misleading information in the aftermath of all of this happening. Candace Owens, for example, retweeted the comedian and libertarian commentator Dave Smith, who shared a breaking news report from something called Leading Report. They said, breaking, Venezuelan migrants can apply to become refugees in the United States, per DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. Dave ironically quoted this and said, America first, ! So the idea here is breaking news. Kristi Noem, the head of DHS for Trump, says all these people in Venezuela can come to the U.S. as refugees, but that's actually not what she said. And they're, of course, against refugee resettlement and don't want mass migration. We could have that conversation. But more importantly, that's not what she said. She simply restated the fact that people who are currently or were in the United States already on temporary protected status of Venezuelan origin. So not all the people in Venezuela now coming to America, as they're kind of portraying it. The people who were already here under temporary protected status can apply for asylum if they still feel they can't go back to Venezuela. That's just a factual statement that they can apply. It's not new. And yes, she said it in an interview, I think yesterday or the day before, but it's not breaking news and it's not a policy change of any kind. They can apply and they might not get it. So the Department for Homeland Security replied and said, "This is not what Secretary Noem said. President Trump is bringing stability to Venezuela and bringing to justice an illegitimate narco-terrorist dictator who stole from his own people. Secretary Noem ended temporary protected status for more than 500,000 Venezuelans, and now they can go home to a country that they love." So that's actually the interesting thing here is the Trump administration ended legal status for many Venezuelans who were in the U.S. and had been given it by the Biden administration, which I didn't agree with and thought was unfair to some of those people who couldn't go back to Venezuela. But so then you have these like true America firsters on the right, Dave Smith, Candace Owens, attacking the Trump administration for like supposedly being too pro-refugee and welcoming in hordes of refugees. But that's literally the opposite. Whether you agree with them or not, the Trump administration has heavily restricted refugee resettlement to the U.S. and has canceled status for people. Like, it just, again, is not correct and is spreading a narrative to millions of people that is fundamentally not rooted in reality, all based in a distortion of what Kristi Noem actually said. I have the actual clip of her that they are misconstruing. Let's listen to this.
Well, Venezuela today is more free than it was yesterday, and it's going to continue to be that way as long as President Trump is in the White House and is making sure that he's protecting the interests of the American people, because that ripple effect will continue to bring that kind of liberty to Venezuela as well. These programs, we're bringing integrity back to them. The decisions are made in conjunction with the State Department, with the White House, and then we at the Homeland Security implement them and make sure that they are followed through. So every individual that was under TPS has the opportunity to apply for refugee status, and that evaluation will go forward. But we need to make sure that our programs actually mean something and that we're following the law. And that's how that decision with TPS was made.
So again, guys, what Kristi Noem said is that if you were in the U.S. on TPS, temporary protective status, and you're Venezuelan, you don't have to go back if you feel that you can't, if you can apply for refugee status and stay. But you can apply. She said they can apply, which is just true. They can. It is an option they are able to do. And then the Trump administration can decide whether to approve it or not. And they are misconstruing that statement to act as if Kristi Noem and the Trump administration are welcoming hordes of Venezuelans into our country. That's not true, who are in Venezuela now. And now that we've toppled the regime, come on in. So it's just, I absolutely think we need a legitimate and robust debate about what Trump did and whether it's legal, whether it's illegal, whether it's going to make things worse. But of course, I mean, I'm just so happy for the Venezuelan people who've been freed from this monster regardless. But I do think there's a legitimate discussion to be had about whether it's going to make things worse in the long run, whether we're going to get sucked into protracted conflict. But why do people have to spread fake news and wild conspiracies that it's really all somehow about Israel and all this other stuff? I just find it exhausting, and I think it does far more to mislead audiences and divide Americans than it does to actually further the conversation about these important issues. But that's just my take on it all, guys. Y'all will have to let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed, hit the like button, and all of that. And guys, that'll be it for today's episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast. Thanks so much for listening, and we will talk again real soon.